Oh, you're on mute.
I just started recording it and I just let in Scott. Hi, Scott.
Hello.
Hey Scott, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
So does Rachel have a permission to share screen with us when she...
Yeah, oh, it's share screen.
One second.
Host disabled
I just gave
attendee
it
screen sharing.
permission. Yeah, one second.
Okay.
How is life, Scott?
Life is good. I'm actually off for the rest of the year.
Wow. Wow.
So I have a lot of gratitude.
Is that work now?
That's
Rachel?
royalty. That's not gratitude. To be off for 2 weeks, that's royal treatment.
Yes.
It is. I'm really excited actually. So
Good for you. Good for
It's a nice
you.
break.
I'm a little jealous. I might have a little bit of jealousy.
Oh, this has been a hellish month for me. So I'm just catching my breath before it starts all over again.
Hey.
Wow. Yeah. So
You might not be able to record the content.
So I am actually going to be giving my notice to my company in January 2nd, and I've already told my management. So
Wow.
I just have to send it to HR, and it'll be a few months after that, but it's the train is leaving the station, so to speak.
Wow, congratulations. That's a really big step.
Well, yeah, it is, but I'm now looking to move on to the encore career of my life, which is going to be more around the arts and, getting more involved with FOMOPA and just,
Wonderful.
moving on to the new phase. So
Wonderful.
I'm excited.
Wonderful.
Well done,
guys
Scott.
see
I'm
my
extremely
screen?
excited for you. I can see the screen, Rachel. It looks fantastic.
Yay. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
We will be looking at Socrates and see if more people will join us for a couple minutes.
Hey, Zora, I wasn't sure if you had a chance to, there was a fairly big article in the New York Times a few weeks ago about he was a pretty renowned psychologist who did a lot of research on happiness in the 60s and 70s.
Who was that?
I can go look for the article and send you a link. I meant to do it, but I forgot.
Okay.
But what is so ironic, this guy did some groundbreaking research and ultimately in his mid-40s, he leapt off a building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
You must have been pretty happy.
That's not good.
Well, maybe it was a leap of happiness. But no, he really did some groundbreaking research, but apparently he had some very deep depression that he didn't really let on and all that, which people concluded he was interested in studying happiness because he himself was not happy and he was trying to get there. Very interesting story, though.
I'd
Yes.
like to read it too, Scott.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll be happy to look at that. Again, I am maybe the motivation of course, people who feel that something is not right, then they go deeper, right? So it makes sense. But at the same time, there's not a silver bullet, and everything is everything looks so simple, and once you start diving deeper, it doesn't get much more simple. It gets more and more complicated. So, and we will be talking about that with gratitude too, which is not like a silver bullet for anything either. So I'm excited to share and hear your opinions too, guys, because this is always a discussion. So if we would have any new people, then I will just start with, this is not a therapy session. This is really just a talk. And just to make sure that we have no wrong expectations. And the formula about emotions is really to be able to learn about them, to be able to understand how they work in any particular situation or for any particular person, And then the third step is implementation in your own life. So there is not one can solve everything. It is a process. And so I wanted to start with Socrates because it always looks good when we are looking to Greek philosophers. Then we always look like we can see beyond our everyday life, right? And so I like this quote, and I also like the counter quote that was used by Seinfeld in one of his episodes, that the exam in life is not worth living either. And so so I thought that a little fun little fun for the beginning is always good. But what he meant, Socrates, or what I would suggest that he meant, that examining life means to really understanding all the nuances and all the spectrum of events that we go through, and understanding them in a depth. And if we do that and really go deeper, then we would understand that the spectrum of emotions is really much bigger than we would anticipate without any deeper insight, and that we actually are experiencing more than one emotion at the same time. And again, it's about spectrum, and it's about how well we can control which emotions we will let surface and which emotions we will learn how to maybe not give them prominence. And the studying around that is pretty much a lifelong process. And last time we talked about happiness as some kind of a sum of a positive emotional and even physical responses to stimuli. And some of the stimuli might be very objective, and some of the stimuli might be very subjective. There are a lot of positive and negative reactions that we have to stimuli that we just think they exist, right? And we probably can all relate to that. And in this discussion, I wanted us to focus mostly on the positive ones and examine them a little deeper. And so maybe Rachel can show us the next slide, and we will talk about the really basic emotions that people will recognize, and we have a very straightforward facial expressions for these, how we look when we are excited, and how we look when we are scared, and how we look when we are angry or happy. And then there are nuances where a lot of miscommunication can happen in verbal and in nonverbal communication. And there is a lot of research about how people actually work with this spectrum. And really, being happy is a different thing than having a big spectrum of these emotions, and being able to recognize, let's say, being angry and being frustrated. And people who do well in life overall are actually not the happy people, but the people who can understand the bigger spectrum of emotions, because then they can be more accurate in responding to them, right? Because the response of, let's say, angry and frustrated is going to have a big prediction on our success in response. And I know everybody is muted because you guys think that I know everything, but I want you to understand this as a discussion. And I want to put out there the moment of the spectrum of the emotion that is more important than just having 6 basic emotions and then treat life as if there will be a certain cookie cutter for negative and positive emotional and even physical response. So I want to gradually show you 3 levels of how we can approach our emotions. So there was the level 1. This is more of a level 2. And I want to show you something what is considered like a broad spectrum of emotional diversity. And there is actually a research that people who have a broad emotional diversity do best. Those are the people who actually are most successful in the life, in their profession, in their relationships, and in the way how they proceed with their social life, but even individual life. So I want you to look at the spectrum as you see it in the middle, where is the main core of the 6 emotions that we all kind of work with, and where we start as a children, and then we broaden the spectrum to, let's say, 20, 30 emotions. And that's where I think with these talks we should get. And I would love for us to focus on the positive ones, because I think that they are a little bit underrepresented, that most people are so good at talking about the negative ones, and most people are so tied to the negative ones and trying to solve them, instead of focusing on the positive ones and not creating that much space for the ones that are in the negative spectrum. And so I kind of wanted us to talk about gratitude, because gratitude in every society, in every culture, in every religion, is highly valued. I mean, everywhere on every continent, mother will be very detailed about, well, you got something and did you say thank you? And she will even send the kid back. Like if the kid says, oh, I don't know, I didn't remember if I said thank you, mom will say, go back and say thank you, right? And all the religions, even the ones that are monotheic, even the one that are polytheic, that have more than one God, are very much focused on gratitude and making sure thanking for all the blessings. And so we, with Rachel, found this kind of a little graph that will show us what we can be thankful for. And you can see that they are very different, from clean air to parents or siblings. And overall, there is actually a definition of gratitude, which is used for research purposes. And I thought that we should point out that there are 2 ways how we can define the gratitude. And the main umbrella of the definition would be that it is a general tendency for people to appreciate the good things in their life, right? So this is an umbrella, and some psychologists would actually consider different form of gratitude when it's toward a person, somebody exact with the name who did something for us or somehow supported us. Or if it's more abstract form, let's say we are thanking God, we are thanking angels or good spirits. And there are 2 different ways how to be grateful in these 2 kind of main situations. And so now, to kind of start with the positive tone, I would want us to count our blessings. And so I would want us to talk about what blessing can we recall from immediate past, maybe today, what happened to us or something what we are thankful for without having an exact person attached to it. Like, I am very thankful for my health, and I am in this situation when so many people have so many complications and restrictions and limitations. I feel very thankful, and I'm not sure if I should thank the God or angels, but I do feel this warm fuzzy feeling of gratitude that I am healthy today, and I can enjoy that. And so I wanted you guys to share too, if you feel like it, if there is any blessing that you want to express your gratitude today. Scott, do you have anything that you want to share with us?
You stole my thunder.
Oh.
Every day, just based on my own personal history, every day I'm grateful for good health, and also in my day-to-day work with cancer doctors, I am exposed to catastrophic illness constantly, and so I very much have an appreciation on a daily basis for health. So I'm with you.
Okay, I understand. So we were talking about this, about these positive feelings that come with gratitude, there are other feelings that are typically coming hand in hand with this, and there is sometimes feeling of elevation, right? There are people who would, let's say, if we look at the graph we have in front of us, people are thankful for their school or for their memories, and some kind of elevation comes with that, and also connectiveness, very kind of, we are connected to certain place or connected to certain situation while we feeling this gratitude, this non-personal gratitude. But there is an interesting thing that I will just tell you a story to see the whole spectrum of this gratitude towards entity, abstract entity. Let's say it's evening and you are driving from event, you are downtown Tampa, and now it's dark, you take a turn and you find out it's a one-way. So suddenly you are in one way, but it's evening and there is no traffic. You just turn around, nothing happened, nobody's seen what you've done, nobody knows, you are just super grateful that you didn't get penalty, that the police guy wasn't there, or you are super grateful that there was not just car coming in the right direction, and so you avoided so there is this gratitude, right? But let's go further with this. Let's imagine that you are going from event, but your sister said that she's not feeling well and she wants her 3-year-old toddler to be driven by you. So you are in this car, there is this 3-year-old toddler sleeping on the back seat, and you do this turn. And the thing is that, another thing is there are 2 or 3 people on the sidewalk looking at you and just like shaking hands, right? Shaking hands. So what comes in now, suddenly there is embarrassment, right? There is a negative feeling, even when nothing happened. Nothing happened. You turned around, kid didn't woke up, was just sleeping in the back seat, and the same situation was, but there was the moment of embarrassment. There is a negative situation, or imagine that you will suddenly feel a guilt, like, oh my goodness, I took responsibility for my sister's baby and I am doing this hazardous turn, right? And so we feel guilt, and then there is embarrassment. And now we have to make the decision. We can make the decision which of these emotions we will ride. But the decision we can make only if we are absolutely aware and know our emotion. And so the introspective look into what is it we really feel is super important for us to manage the reaction. And it's not as self-explanatory as it looks like, because it's not easy to admit guilt. I am guilty. I made this stupid turn. I was not paying attention. I should have looked better. I should have turned on my MapQuest and let the Siri guide me, right? It's not so easy to take a responsibility. And so for people who are not fully aware of their emotions, very easily the negative feeling which comes out in the guilt can turn into an anger, or can be understood as an anger. And so instead of feeling guilt, you just feel negative. You actually even sweating, right? That's how negative this is. That's how inappropriate you feel. And you can decide, I feel anger. And that happens. And now suddenly you find yourself angry at your sister because your sister should know better than let you drive her toddler home. And it's really irresponsible from her. She should know that you are a busy person, and she should not have allowed you to take the baby home anyway, right? So I just want you to be aware of the spectrum, how we can move the spectrum of the negative emotions, and how that is all liquid. And even when we think that it just happened to us, no, it is a situation where we are fully in control. Most of these impulses are objective, but a lot of them are very subjective or are filtered through a very subjective filter. And guess who can make a decision about these filters and about these prominences to different emotions? Anybody wants to say anything about this situation? So I will just sum it up to you. Everything
I would like to say something.
Oh, yes,
but
Susan,
after,
please.
no, you do it, and then I'll say something after.
Okay, so I want you to understand that you are in control of your emotional life, and you are the one who will make the decisions and will take responsibility for your own emotions or reactions, right? So Susan, please.
Well, I guess, I mean, I know this is not our therapy, but, you know, sometimes I guess if I've done something that I thought like, oh, that was really not a good thing to do. Often it can happen in traffic. It can happen when you're driving. There's a lot of craziness out there on the road. But, you know, so I understand that experience of like, oh, I feel bad now I did something. And if I know it affected another driver, or if I think I did, I acknowledge it. And I find that really helps me deal with my feelings about it. Because I know they're thinking like, oh my God, you know, I can't believe she just like signaled and went into the other lane, or so, whatever it was. You know, it's usually something where you don't see someone, or someone does it to me. I had someone almost just like barrel into me as I was driving next to them recently. And I was just like, instead of getting angry, I was just like, you know, thank God. I was grateful not to be hit, not to be alive. And I did not get angry at them. I was like, okay, thank you for not hitting me.
Exactly. And so I want us to understand that we are in control, and there is a spectrum, and every event and every impulse that comes to us has a spectrum of emotions that we can pull or not pull out, right?
Yeah.
And we can always, so this is an event where at the end, really everything went well, but different people will transform this event into different experience.
Yeah.
So some people will brag about how lucky they were. There was no police who will give you a penalty. There was no car going in the right direction your way, and everything went well, right?
Yeah.
There will be a different person who will describe this event as extremely embarrassing, because there were those two people on the corner and they were shaking their hands, and they will tell this story as, well, I am really a good driver, but this was so embarrassing. And that will be the story, right? And then it will be another, and there's many of ways how we can tell this story. And I want to say that there is a way how happy people will tell this story. And I want us to focus on that. And I want us to focus on the fact that counting your blessings is a great way to bring a positive emotions. But if you go too far with too dramatical events, you can actually trigger the opposite. And that's what I wanted us to discuss, because the spectrum is very liquid and it's very, I would say, individual. And that's why I want to go back learning about the emotions and really understanding the spectrum. Where does the happy occasion stop and where the embarrassment steps in, or where the guilt steps in? And then we run with the guilt and try to find other negative emotions, how we can cover our guilt. And then so knowing the spectrum, understanding how it works for us, and then implementing it in our life. Because guess what? The story 3 weeks from now will be whatever you choose to emphasize. And happy people are the ones who emphasize the happy endings, not the ones who just happy things are happening to them. I want you to understand the whole spectrum is happening to all of us. And it is on us what we choose to surface out after 2 weeks, or even after a couple hours. It's on us to make the decision if we will feel the gratitude for this was, angel was there, it was not my day to die, and I'm thankful for that, right? Or we can focus on something else. If anybody at any time wants to say something, I'm loving it.
I do. I
Okay.
do.
Okay.
There's something called, I love it. I actually live by this. I actually want a tattoo, but just not ready for that commitment yet. It's called Ho'oponopono, and it's actually a Hawaiian prayer. And I don't know if anyone has ever read Joe Vitale, he was in The Secret, or Dr. Hulong. Dr. Hulong cured a whole mental hospital by this prayer that's, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And he didn't even see a patient. He just prayed literally over their files, and he cured every single person in there. It's not even a hoax, it's a genuine thing. And his perception was that you're responsible for everything that comes into your domain. You're responsible for every vibration. And that by doing this prayer of gratefulness, you bring yourself back down to yourself and a higher source. Now, it's a lot to take in, but I truly believe this. Like, in my very essence of who I am, I believe in this prayer. But if you should read it, Zora, it's fantastic. Everyone should just go out and just read about Dr. Joe Vitale.
Okay, let me write this down, because
let me pull up how to spell Ho'oponopono, because it's actually a Hawaiian prayer.
Okay, you can
can you put the information in the chat?
I will, yes.
Please do, please
And
do.
you guys will check it out and we can all talk about it next time. I swear I'm obsessed, and I very rarely get obsessed with it. It's so positive. So anytime I find myself in a stressful situation or I feel like really like anxiety, I start doing my Ho'oponopono and everything feels more relaxed. It could be just a placebo effect, but I really believe in it though. I genuinely do.
Well, overall, people who are in a positive mood do better decisions, right? People who make decisions in a state of anger or frustration or fighting any negative responses are not going to be so successful. Scott, do you want to?
Yeah, I would actually. So it's funny. So you and Suzanne used the car analogy, the driving analogy, and then Deirdre talked about, you know, when she's stressed and trying to, you know, find some release for that stress. It started me thinking about a very challenging experience I went through a number of years ago. So I do a lot of driving in my job. I put probably 30,000 miles on a car in a year. So in general, I'm a very capable, very safe, very good driver, very confident driver. So a number of years ago, about 2 or 3 years ago, for the first time, I rented a car in Italy to drive through the Dolomite Mountains. I quickly learned I was in over my head, and I could have had two reactions to that. I could have gotten very aggressive, like the Italians, and taken a lot of reckless risks with my wife in the car, or I could have, you know, as a man, this is hard to do sometimes, but acknowledge I was terrified and in over my head, and we were going to die if I made stupid moves. So I sort of acknowledged my fear, really got humble very quickly, and just accepted, that state of fear. I talked about it with my wife, and I said, I'm in over my head. I should not have rented this car. And we had it for a week. But I became a much better driver in those circumstances by being aware of my anxiety, being much more cautious. And every day I felt gratitude that we didn't plunge off a cliff, or we didn't get into a car wreck. Even on some of the autostradas where you're going almost 100 miles an hour. And at the very end of the week, when we turned the car in, it was like this immense sense of joy. But to get there, it is a happy memory, but to get there, I had to acknowledge the negative emotions that I was feeling and vocalize them.
Yes.
So everything that you're talking about here, I was like, yes, I had that experience and it is still with me.
And you can imagine how you can, a couple of years later, talk about this experience of driving in Italy with gratitude or with anger, right?
And it's a happy memory now.
And
it can be memory.
And actually, even in the negative sphere, there could be frustration, there could be anger, there could be hate, right? And
I had all that.
And all these, being aware of all these nuances of the negative feelings are going to be much helpful for you adjusting. And so more spectrum of these understanding of these emotions you have, better you can adjust to that. Because
Yes.
And so that's what we are talking about, this omni-emotional experience, and then pretty much making a cautious decision about the reaction and how to deal with that. And you can see how a person with a very limited spectrum of emotions will probably not respond correctly because it was negative, but it was not anger, right? So there was no need to attack anybody.
Right.
And so you can see how that can very much make your life miserable if you don't understand the spectrum and then have an appropriate reaction. and that can screw up your social life or the whole vacation.
Yes.
And so I wanted to talk about this because I wanted to introduce the gratefulness as a spectrum of emotions. I did not want to simplify this as something, because in the culture, in the religion, the grateful feeling is simplified to just something positive, something where somebody does or something good happens to you and you are grateful. And I wanted to broaden out the spectrum and the complications of yes, but, however, and I wanted us to talk about it so we really can go into a depth of this overall very positive emotional response as feeling grateful. If you guys are okay, let's move into a second part of feeling grateful. And that is when we are connecting our gratefulness with a certain person. And that is on the spectrum of the positive emotions, a little bit different place. And the research is focusing somewhere else where we connect with the person. And a little different mechanisms work on that. And I wanted to talk about those because when we experience gratefulness to other person, then there is again the positive, the fuzzy feeling, the elevation when we are in a virtue of somebody who did a kind thing. We do again experience the connectivity, but an interesting interference come, and that is feeling of being in debt. And that is something what is happening when we feel gratitude towards a particular person. And overall, being in debt is a negative feeling that has a certain spectrum again, but I wanted us to define the gratefulness to abstract powers and to other person, because the positive emotions are the same, but the negative emotions that resurface with that are a little different. And feeling in debt is a negative emotion that actually is against we are all developing a social behavior, and there has to be a balance in our social behavior in order to sustain it. So when we negatively experience being in debt, then that can, the whole experience can be put into a whole different light and be then described as a negative. So I will just, again, we can start with talking about the positive emotion, and then we can just bring it on the different side of the spectrum. So I will start with being thankful to a particular person, okay? So yesterday, I was talking to Milan, my partner, and I said something like this: I am so angry with myself. Guess what I've done, right? And I did a little stupid thing and it was really not worth it. And he said, I don't want you to be angry with yourself. Be angry at me. Just take it out on me so it doesn't stay in you. And I was so thankful that somebody is willing to take responsibility for something what I obviously did, and it was obviously my mistake. And I felt this enormous gratitude that somebody is willing to take it away from me and just take the blame and be the medium that will take this anger away from me. And so that is my immediate experience with the gratitude toward other person. And if you guys want to share something, I would love that, or we can move on.
I don't necessarily have anything personal to share in this regard, but I'd like to amplify this topic. So there is fairly robust research into human relationships, and especially into marital relationships or long-term committed relationships between people, and they've actually studied married couples, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, straight, whatever, same-sex, straight, across the spectrum. And they videotaped couples over days continuously, and they assessed their interactions, and they found the couples that described themselves as having a happy, healthy relationship were those couples that expressed they made the most frequent expressions of gratitude to each other throughout the day. And even for little things like thank you for emptying the dishwasher, little micro gratitudes, what they found is the couples that had the most successful relationships, they did this at least 5 times a day. They said it was actually quantifiable. And they said it's not so much that you do it like a specific number each day, but they said being mindful and appreciative of the other person comes like truly from your heart, is expressed in a lot of very subtle, small ways, but it makes a big difference day after day after day in relationship dynamics. And it all comes down to expressions of gratitude.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the research shows, and this is something what I really want us to understand. Trait gratitude is correlated with desirable outcomes such as higher relationship satisfaction, happiness, pro-sociability, fewer symptoms of a physical illness, and less envy and materialism. And so practicing gratitude towards other person has all these good influences on us. And I want us to bring this emotion to you. And I would really want you to recall one person who has a name and is alive. It's a real person that actually gave you this feeling. And I want you to really pay attention to that and see if you can, for yourself, experience this again, this gratitude, even when that was something what happened a couple of days, weeks, even months ago. And it can be very simple, but there is a little exercise that you probably heard about, and it is about writing a gratitude letter. And writing is really thinking, right? I mean, when we write, then we actually really have to dive into what we are thinking about, and we are reliving that experience. And I want us to see if you are willing to either share this verbally, or I want to encourage you to really think about a person that you can write a gratitude letter. The thing is that really to go all the way, the best thing is to write that letter, actually spend time and making a card. So you extend the time that you're dealing with this because you're still thinking and reliving that gratitude feeling. And really, it's enormously rewarding to deliver that. And just be there and say like, okay, this is freaking awkward, but 2 months ago when you did this for me, I did not forget, and actually I wanted to relive that feeling that I had when you did this little job for me or took a shift or whatever that was. And I want to give you this card because it just feels so good. And that connectiveness and that depth of the relationship is exactly what this research was describing. And so I really don't want to give anybody homework. That's not what this is about. But if you guys are interested, we can have a little session where we would either in person or on Zoom actually do this together. And there are certain exercises that we can do, but we can talk about them later. So let me just bring you to the other extreme, and we are already 45 minutes into our event, so I don't want to make this too long, but I want to present the spectrum of the emotions that happens. And if we see, for example, in Asian cultures, actually small gifts very often are refused just because the feeling of being in debt is is perceived more negatively than here. Here, 99% of Americans are in debt. And it's not to particular person, it is to corporation or to bank, right? And so I would say the feeling of being in debt is in very different spectrum, and it's numbed by the way how we really live and how we all run our everyday lives and how we are encouraged to do that. But in cultures where this is not so normal, where you want to buy a house, you have to save the money, or when you want to buy whatever, then you just have to save the money and go with savings. The emotion of being in debt is in very different spectrum. But overall, social debt is considered as a negative emotion that we actually fight and we turn it somewhere else. So we will, instead of being thankful to person that took our shift, we would build this story of, well, wonder why she or he did it. What are his real intentions? Like, is he going to rattle me out to the boss that I didn't do that and they had to do it? And so because we need to, sometimes we would feel the need to go with the negative emotion, we can shift the whole positive and gratitude experience into totally different level. And all this is happening very smoothly. And if we are not aware of the spectrum of emotions, our reaction could be on the lower level inappropriate, and on the upper level like really wrong and damaging, right? And antisocial, because of course if instead of gratitude we show this person some suspicion, so next time they will gladly ignore us and our needs or our kind of a misery. And so I wanted us to go with that spectrum and understand how the feeling of gratitude can be, if we are not careful and mindful about this, can shift into totally different realm of experiences. So, but overall, I want us to really end on a positive note and understand gratitude as something what we should we try often. And some of the psychologists who actually do counseling, and this is not a counseling, right? This is just a discussion, and this is about exchanging knowledge. But a lot of the counselors will actually encourage this exercise of gratitude, let's say daily or weekly. And there are different results with that, because as every positive experience, we built a certain wall, and we are then less and less sensitive to that. So there is a formula. When you do this every day, then you should not do this for 3 months. You should just do it for a week. Or if you do it on a weekly basis, then you can do it for 2 or 3 months. But otherwise there is this hedonic adaptation to the positive emotion, just like to every other positive emotion that you will build with the gratitude. So I want you to understand that it still needs to have his hedonic quality, so which means that it's rare or it is a special occasion. So I want you to encourage you to do this exercise, but be mindful of the hedonic adaptation that will sooner or later develop to this feeling of gratitude. And so again, I right now feel extremely thankful that you made it for 50 minutes with me. I was planning 30 to 40 minutes, but it somehow did get a little longer. And I just want to thank you and wish you the best of the holidays that you can imagine. If you are turning on Hanukkah candles, or if you are waiting for Santa to bring something under the tree, I just want everybody to have all the positive emotions that you can positively come up with. Susan.
I just had a question before we go. I don't quite understand the hedonic response. And you were talking about it as being, I don't know, a flip side of gratitude or something. And you just lost me there a little.
Yes, well, in the last talks, we were talking about hedonic happiness and then happiness as a long-term goal. And we were talking about small episodes of happiness that happen to us. Let's say we find something what we thought was a long time lost, and there is this immediate positive emotion, or we can bring to ourselves a positive emotion by eating a good food, right? And so all this are small hedonic moments of happiness that will get old. We can't really build our life happiness on them, because if we have cake, it's this beautiful experience. But if we have cake 2 weeks in a row, we don't feel that it's such a happy occasion anymore, right? And so the hedonic experience is the happiness from consumption of something what is fleeting. And
hedonism and fleeting, yeah.
Yes, and so I want to make the point of the gratitude being the same kind of hedonic experience where we feel this positive emotion, but it can get old very quickly, just like any other hedonic consumption. And yeah, well, again, every time something happens, there is a spectrum of emotion, and the happy people are not the ones who just have happy experiences, but the ones who will choose the spectrum of the positive emotions to remember and experience again and again. Thank you. Thank you. I mean it. So again, happy holidays. I actually want to encourage you. I was thinking that for next meeting, we would talk about the relationships. And of course, that's a topic that is really further than just 30, 40 minutes. But I want to encourage you. You all know where to find me. If you have an idea for a topic that interests you, or you have some special experiences, I'll be happy to prioritize that. So if you want to join me in January, we'll be talking about happy relationships.
That sounds great.
Thank you so very much. Stay in touch.
Okay.
Happy holidays, everyone. Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy
Happy holidays.
holidays.